Hi everybody. I'm so glad to see you again. I hope you had a really good time doing the Creepy Critters project. And if you're new this week, welcome. My name is Jane and we're going to be doing an art project today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be making raised salt drawings. That means that we're going to get salt on a piece of paper and it's going to be raised, and then we're going to paint the salt. Here's another smaller one. And here's another small one that I did. I'll be showing you some more during the course of this, and I'll be showing you exactly how to do this. So, why did I pick circles and squares? I was kind of inspired by an artist named Wassily Kandinsky. Kandinsky was a Russian artist. He was born in Russia in 1886, and he lived until 1944. He did these circle and square paintings in probably about 1913. So a little over 100 years ago he did these. They look pretty contemporary, pretty modern, pretty right now. And I thought it would be a fun thing to translate into a salt drawing. So first I want to show you the materials that we're going to need. You're going to need maybe some markers, it depends, that was optional. You're going to need watercolor paints. You're going to need a brush. You're going to need some water, some cups of water for the watercolor paints for the brush, because remember last time I was talking about how if you don't rinse your brush between colors, the colors get really muddy. So I just have 8 cups, and if I need more water, I'll just go rinse these cups out and bring some fresh water. You're going to need glue. So I'm using Elmer's white glue, and I'm using it from an applicator. It's really important to use an applicator because you're going to be basically drawing with the glue. Now the other thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need something to do this on. So I can use plates. I can use plastic plates that are colorful. I can use paper plates. This one is white. This is a small green paper plate, a purple paper plate. I can also use a styrofoam from meat, from meat or from bakery goods, wherever if your mom has some styrofoam containers. Any of these things work. I'm not so sure though that plastic is the best thing to use, because I noticed that when I picked this piece up, this is on a plastic plate. I did this a few days ago. When I picked this up today to get all set for you, I noticed that some of the raised salt came off. I know, however, that the raised salt on poster board, which is another great backing, didn't crack off. You do not want to use light paper like computer paper or drawing paper, the kind of paper in the pad that we used last time, because the salt definitely cracks off. I'm going to get an example to show you. The first time I did it on the drawing paper from last time, and if I move the paper, all the salt cracks off. Whereas with poster board, it really doesn't crack off. It really stays. So I'm going to show you how to get started doing this. Oh, the other thing that we're going to need that is one of the more important things, we've got paint, water, glue, and whatever backing you're going to use. We also need salt, table salt. I have some excess in this bag, and then we're going to need a pan, something to catch it all in, because you don't want to just sprinkle salt all over everything and then have it go everywhere. So that's going to be really good to catch the excess salt. So I'm going to get started making one of these, but I'm going to make a smaller one. Now, there are lots of ways to make a square. What you can do is find something in your environment that's square. And I know that the bottom of this Kleenex box is square. And you remember that a square has equal sides. All the sides are the same length and right angles. So you remember that. Now, if for some reason you want to do this without a template, is what I'd call that, you can take a piece of computer paper. So I've got a piece of computer paper, and what I'm going to do, I know that this is 8.5 and this is 11. What I can do is fold the computer paper so it's down to the end. So now I know that this is 8 inches and this is 8 inches, right? Then I can fold this up and have a good fold here. And then what I can do, I can just fold this back. Now I know that this is a square. So I can put this on my poster board and I've got a big square and I can trace that. Okay, but I'm going to do a much smaller one today. So I'm going to take the Kleenex box and I'm going to put the Kleenex box on my piece of poster board. I'm going to make sure that the edges are all squared up, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to trace it. Whoops, I moved this, so let me do this again. I'm going to trace it. Okay, so now I'm going to cut with my scissors. Okay, so I'm going to cut. And I basically have a square. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the frame. So I've already cut this one and I think this is a little better. So the way I'm going to, well, I can show you on this too. The way I'm going to make the frame is I'm going to use the edges, these squares, and I'm going to go in diagonally. And I'm going to make points diagonally. And this seems like it's kind of difficult to understand, but I just want you to understand which way I'm going to put my finger. I'm not going to put my finger like this. I'm going to put my finger at the edge of this, and I'm going to make a little dot. Okay? So my finger is going in this direction. My nail is right at the corner. And the end of my finger is right here. And that way I can use this as a measurement going all the way around. So let's do it on here. So, got one. Using the same finger. Now your fingers obviously are different size than mine. If you need to go up to your first knuckle, that's okay too. Whatever works. And if you're really good with a ruler, you can do this measuring. Okay, so now you can see I've got these points. Can you see that? Now what I'm going to do is make a line connecting each of these points. And this is going to form my frame. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. It's probably going to look better if it's not perfect. Now I'm going to take a heavy black marker and I'm going to draw my frame. So now I've got on my piece of poster board the frame. So you can see each of these has a frame. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm just going to switch this out because I've already started this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out what the center point is on each of these sides. I'm just going to eyeball it, meaning doesn't have to be exact. And then I can draw a line. And with this, I'm not going to put any black on it. I'm just going to leave it like this. Now, the backing can be either watercolor or you can use markers to fill in the squares. I think that the watercolors work a little bit better, but I'm going to show you both options. So I would start, if I was going to do markers, I would start with any color I wanted to, and I would start carefully filling one of these squares in. Okay, so I'm just going to fill the whole thing in. And after I fill this in, I would go to another square and use another color. So I think you get the idea. You're going to fill this in totally. Now, the other thing that I would do if I wanted instead, and let's say, let me go back. So, you know, maybe you'd fill this one in with orange, but you'd fill it in. You'd really, you can see with this one that I have really filled in each of those squares. There's no white space showing, but I just don't want to linger too long on this. So if I were going to do watercolors as a background, I'm going to have to wait to let it dry. But this one, if I'm using markers, I do not have to let it dry because it's all dry. So this one's a little faster than the watercolors, but I think the watercolors look a little bit better. So if I'm going to use watercolor, I'm going to get a piece of paper and I'm going to put it under my piece. I don't want to wreck a table that I'm sitting at. Get all this other stuff out of the way. And I'm going to take my watercolors and I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to fill in the first color that I want to use. So let's say I want to use purple to start with. So what I'd do is I'd start filling in that color. And if you're trying to think of what colors to use and what colors go well together, you can do it intuitively. Remember I talked about that a few classes ago? Intuitively means that you just have a feeling for what colors you like together. Or you can do it more intellectually. Remember I talked about that? You can think about it a little bit more and maybe look at a color wheel. You can go online, and I'm going to show you a color wheel in just a second. And the color wheel will help you know how colors work together. Let me just make sure I'm getting the right, I don't wreck too much. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to fill this in. Okay, and I'm going to show you the color wheel in just a minute, but you can find a color wheel online really easily. It's a little bit of color theory from high school and college, but it's an interesting thing to know about it now. So here, remember for the collage, I had the color wheel. The three primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. And then going around the color wheel, I've got yellow, green, blue, purple, red, and orange. So colors next to each other work really well. Colors across from each other work really well. That's a sort of an intellectual approach. That's a thinking approach. You can just decide, I really love certain colors together. I think I'll use those. So now let me do another color. So I'm going to clean my brush. And the other thing I always want to have with me is some paper towel. Okay, so you can see that the brush might still have a little purple on it. So I don't want to go into another color with purple. So I'm going to rinse it out again. And I'm going to go to another color. So let's say I want to go with this light green. I like this purple and light green together. So what I do is fill that in. Okay, so I'm not gonna continue doing this. I think you get the idea that you're gonna choose 4 colors for this and you're gonna paint all these squares. So let me clean this brush. And I have done it already, so same thing. I've used, the green that I've used is slightly different, but it's the same thing. With again, the markers, you do not have to let them dry. With, however, the watercolors, clearly you have to let them dry. If you don't, and I went over this, it would smudge and it would be terrible. So you really have to let this thoroughly dry. Okay, so I've let this thoroughly dry. You can see nothing smears. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get ready to do the fun part, which is gonna be the salt and the paste. So let me get my tray and put it under everything. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my glue and open it. And then if, you know what I always like to do before I do something for real is test it out to see how it can go, how it's gonna work. So I'm testing it out, I see how it's gonna work. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a big circle here and stop it. Make another big circle. And again, they do not have to be perfect. If you look at the Kandinsky circles, they are not perfect. Okay, so now I've got the big circles, and now I'm going to do a slightly smaller circle, trying not to overlap the glue from the first circle. And then finally, after I do this, I'm going to put a dot in the middle of each of these. So now you can see, I'm going to close my glue. Always close your glue because you don't want it to dry up. So now you can see that I have these glue circles on all of the squares. Now this is the fun part. I'm going to take salt, and you need a lot of salt for this, and I'm going to sprinkle salt over this. And you can save the excess salt and keep using it for your salt paintings, your raised salt paintings. And the reason they're called raised salt paintings is because the salt line is higher than the back of the paper. Okay, so I've now coated it with salt, and what I'm going to do is I am going to shake the salt off, and you can see that I've got just these raised salt lines where the glue was. I'm going to put my excess salt aside and get my newspaper again. Well, it's right here. And now this is really the fun part. So now I'm going to decide what colors I want to use. Now you want to use very wet, watery colors. So maybe with the green, I'll start with red. So I'm going to make sure this is really watery. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch the brush. I'm not going to go into the salt. I'm just going to touch the salt. And the watercolors just kind of travel down the salt track. Okay, so there's one circle. And I think, so I'm gonna rinse this out. That's the purple. Let's Cover some more water. Get my brush clean. And I think I'm going to go for some light green on this purple. So let's get some light green water. Okay. And you can see I'm doing the same thing. You want to get it really watery. And once you start doing this, it's pretty fast. It's a pretty quick project. Okay, so I'm going to rinse this. Now on the orange, maybe I'll use some blue. So let's use this blue. And you want it nice and watery so the paint flows well. I can use the purple water again because purple and blue are pretty close. Okay, and now for the blue, maybe I'll use the orange. Now you're going to have to get to know the colors in your paint set because like, that looks really orange, but when I use it, it actually comes out as a yellowish. You'll see, I'll do some of that. So this is the really orange. Okay, let me clean my brush. Get some new water. I'm going to put these aside. Get some new water. And let's see, maybe I'll go green in here. So let's get a nice green. Okay. And I think I will go blue on this one. Ooh, that's a nice blue, nice turquoisey blue. Okay, let me get some new water. And on this one, maybe I'll do some green, this different color green. Okay, I think I have some water that looks a little green. Okay, and now I'm going to do this yellowish. Looks like orange, but it's really yellowish. Okay, now the final thing I'm going to do is the dots inside. So I think a dark green for this dot would be really nice. For this dot, maybe a red. For this dot, I don't know, I think maybe purple. And for this final dot, why don't I do blue, this nice blue. Okay, now what you've got is you've got your salt painting, your raised salt painting. And I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna put it over here. You don't have to follow me. I'm going to put this over here to dry, and I'm not going to touch it until tomorrow morning because it will, it could fall apart. It could break apart. You could smear it. So I just want to leave it alone. Now, the next thing I want to show you is I already did a paper plate, a big paper plate, and I did with watercolors. First I took a marker and I went around the outside of it a few times to make that frame. And then I took a light pencil mark and I divided it in half. So I had half, and then I did another line dividing that in half. So it's like 8 pieces of a pie. And then I did my watercolors. Now, what I can do on this one, I could do any design I wanted to. I mean, you could draw a picture, you could draw a face, you could draw a house, you could draw a flower. I'm just making designs today. So what I'm going to do is do a spiral on this one. And I'm going to show you just something else to do with this that's kind of fun, where I used the same lines, the same color lines. I can vary the color of these lines. Okay, now I'm going to get my tray of salt again, and this time I can just sort of pour my salt. Let's see if I can do this. Over. And it's not quite covering it. So I'm going to use a little more salt, and I'm going to use excess salt that I had left over from doing this before. And I'm going to cover this really well with salt so that there's no glue showing. Okay, and I'm going to just get some of this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to I tap it. When I pour it off, I tap it just a little bit. And now I've got this line. So now what I'm going to do, get this out of the way, I am going to do a line where the color shifts. So I can start with, let's say I'll start with purple. So I start, maybe I want some purple over here. And remember, I want it to be really watery so that the paint really travels on the salt. If it's not watery enough, it won't travel very well. The only place I'm not going to use the purple is on the purple itself, on the purple piece of pie. Because then it kind of just fades into it. So let me start with another color. Let's do a little blue. Get some blue water. Remember, you don't want to mix your colors of water because they'll get really muddy. And you don't want that. Okay, let's switch color. Maybe I'll go to some red. So I now have my red water. So you can do lots of different things with this technique. It's really fun. I had a lot of fun experimenting with it. Trying different things, you know, and that's the fun thing about art is you experiment, and sometimes you have success and sometimes not so much. But no matter what you do, you'll learn, and that's important. Okay, let's switch colors. I think maybe I'll use a green now. No, I haven't used a green yet. So why don't I try this light green? I like that a lot. And I'm just trying to fill in all the salt, all the exposed salt. Okay, maybe some dark green. It's kind of jewel green. Okay, I'm almost finished. Okay, and one more color. I'm going to use, let's go back to orange. Okay, put a little orange here, a little orange in the middle. And do I need any more? I think I've got it. Maybe a little orange in here. Okay, so now I've got this one. And like I said before, I'm gonna let that dry. And that's raised salt paintings. So you can do whatever you want. You can do a drawing of a flower, you could do a drawing of, I don't know, a butterfly, you could do a drawing of a landscape, the grass and the trees, whatever you want, using the glue and then salt over it. So I thank you for coming today, and moms, I want to say goodbye to you. Bye, moms, because I want to talk to just the kids. Shh, moms, bye. Kids, don't, this is a secret we're going to do now. So moms, go to another room, go away. I just want to talk to the kids without you. I'm not going to tell them anything bad, so don't worry. All right, moms are gone. You remember that Sunday is Mother's Day, so you might want to make something for your mom. So using this same technique, you can make a secret project for your mom that she'll never know anything about. So I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, you don't necessarily have to do a raised salt painting. You could simply make a card. You could make a card, and actually, I need to change something. There's an apostrophe in Mother's Day. So let me just change it on all of these things. So I'm correct, and so you'll do the right thing. Okay, so what you could do is you could simply make a card that on the top of it says Happy Mother's Day, and then maybe it has some hearts on it, or it has, you can paint a flower. This is just watercolor paints. I've taken a piece of computer paper and I've folded it in half, and then I've folded it in half again. So it started out like this. I folded it in half and folded it in half again. And then on the inside, it says, I love you because, and then you can tell your mom all the reasons you love her, and then you sign it, sign your name, and you've got a Mother's Day card. Now, if you'd like to make a Mother's Day present, you could make a raised salt Mother's Day present. I took one of these square plates and I made a flower, and on the top, on the frame part, in black marker, I wrote Happy Mother's Day. and I let it dry, and that's another option. And another option would be the big round plate that has hearts, concentric hearts. That means one heart inside another heart inside another heart. And this is just done using the raised salt technique that I just told you about. So it's glue. Actually, I wrote Happy Mother's Day first because it's kind of hard if you don't write the words first. And you could put Happy Mother's Day and then love, whatever, you know, what your name is. You could put, you know, love Sharon, love Susie, love Nancy, whatever your name is, love Ryan, what your name is. And then I make my heart shapes with glue. In this case, I started in the inside, then I went the next heart, the next heart, the next heart, and the next heart, and I decided what color I wanted to do. And in this case, I just drew a flower and filled in. And then this actually, remember we've talked about mistakes and how artists try to exploit their mistakes? Actually, up here was supposed to be a heart, but I kind of messed it up, so I turned it into a butterfly. So it's a flower with a butterfly. So you can also make a hole in or glue some ribbon onto this, and it's a great Mother's Day present. So I hope you remember next Sunday is Mother's Day, and give your moms big hugs and kisses because I'm sure they're taking such good care of you, and they deserve it. They're the best. So I want to say goodbye for this week, and I will see you next week, and have a very happy Mother's Day, and be kind. And also one more thing. I want you to tell your mom that if she could possibly post your artwork on Art for Kids Illinois, my Facebook page, that would be wonderful, because most of the fun that I have when I teach kids is seeing the fabulous things they create. And since this is virtual and I'm not seeing what you're doing, I would like to get to see some of the things. So if you could post on Art for Kids Illinois Facebook page, or have your moms or dads do it, that would be great. So again, bye for now and be kind.